From Relay FM, this is Connected, episode 158. Today's show is brought to you by Casper, Squarespace, and Balance. My name is Mike Hurley. I am joined by Federico Vitici. Ciao, Federico.
Welcome back, Mike.
Thank you very much. And Stephen Hackett. Howdy to you.
The family's back together.
I know, this feels really weird. I got off a plane this morning, like 5 hours ago from America. And I'm back in my office after 1 month of being away from my office. So my iMac seems like a billboard. It's like the biggest screen on the planet. Everything is weird. I don't feel like I fully know where I am. I also haven't recorded anything in over a week. So the wheels might fall off this one is basically what I'm attempting to tell everybody.
It's fine. It's not a Connected without some sort of chance of disaster. So
that's true.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
You should have really just done the show from an airplane. You should have bought the internet connection from the flight.
Oh, wow.
And opened Skype from. I mean, it's not like Skype can get any worse in terms of quality. So I'm pretty sure that the experience for us would have been the same.
Can you imagine, on an airplane on a night flight? And I'm
podcasting
just like, like just shouting into the background.
And you're just like, hey, sir, do you want a hot towel follow-up? And you're like,
follow-up, the towels are still hot. Topic number 1, airplane food. What's the deal with airplane food?
Steven, can you please save us and take us into the follow-up of the show? Please, thank you.
Yes. Although we have a pit stop before follow-up.
Yeah, we may get whiplash from the change of tone that we're about to attempt here.
It's going to get serious, and then we're going to talk about your iPad. So
okay, great.
Okay.
But September, dear listener, I guess the two of you, my two co-hosts, September is National Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and readers of my site will know that in September I forego sponsorship. This year I'm also donating the membership and YouTube revenue because I didn't have those things last year, and now I do. To raise money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. It's a hospital here in Memphis dedicated to saving the lives of kids with cancer, and it's really close to my family's heart. Our oldest son is a patient there. So the first link in the show notes will be to a page on my website where you can read about it. If you haven't read about it before, you can see why it's special to us, see why St. Jude is special, and I would love it if you can, to help support St. Jude this month. They don't charge families a dime for their care. So we've received millions of dollars of healthcare for our son, and they've never billed me once, which is just incredible. So I would love for you to support them. Like I said, first link in the show notes, go check it out. And many thanks from my family for doing that.
So Stephen is trying to raise $9,000 this year.
Yes.
To help support St. Jude, and it says his kids are going to be running the kids marathon for this. He's already 42% of the goal after just a couple of days. I think it would be amazing if this goal could be met by next week. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And so,
it'd be incredible. Connected
listeners, please, please, please give whatever you can. I know that there's a lot of really worthy causes for charity right now. I understand that there's a lot going on in the world, but this is, if you listen to the show and you enjoy what we do, This should have some element of importance to you, I think, if you've been following us for any period of time. So it would mean the world to all of us if you could give some money to St. Jude. So yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
All right. So if I'm following correctly, I listened to last week's episode this morning. We discovered that Federico's iPad wasn't bent due to some kind of boiling point issue, which I found hilarious. Like that somehow
really
a beach in Italy had found the perfect, I don't know, like some kind of sun flare, which put you to 100 degrees Celsius, was my understanding, to bend your iPad. So that was really
Everyone
unfortunate.
for miles was dead, but the iPad was fine.
I'm so happy you came away unscathed from that, Federico.
yeah, that was really a close call. But,
I also could really feel your. I'm trying to think of the right word. Like, I could really feel like a sense of like awkwardness, of trepidation from you at the idea of having somebody else's iPad. I could feel that. I feel like you didn't say it at the time, but I really felt that you were like, I don't want someone else's iPad, which was your concern about how your replacement was given to you.
It's just more of a yes. I think you're right, and I think it's a consequence of the fact that I don't like to, when I'm investing my money on big purchases, I don't like to buy used things, because this is money that I save, my personal savings, whether it's for my new car or my equipment. And I really don't like the idea of I'm saving money and I'm given something that's already been used and might be damaged in some way that I don't know. I just like the idea of control, and I realize that I'm a little obsessed with this idea of something is new, and if it's broken, I know it's 90% it's my fault. And I've bought, and I think going back in time, this goes back to the problems that I've had with buying used cars. My first 3 cars were all previously owned by someone else, and I've had so many problems, and I've wasted so much time and money on fixing those problems. And the worst part was not necessarily the time and the money, it was not knowing what the exact cause for those problems were. And I just said, the next time I'm going to buy, I'm going to have a big expense in my life. I'm going to save more money. I'm going to wait more time, but I will buy something that is new. And if it's broken, at least I can know what the problem is. And what made this iPad situation especially bad was that I bought a new iPad, but I didn't know what the cause was, even if it was new. And so not knowing what the problem was with the iPad and the potential of now I'm getting a used iPad in return, it was really the worst of both worlds. And I don't know. I can just say that, when I bought my new car last year, I bought a new one, and so far, fingers crossed, still no problems. So yeah, that was the reason for my trepidation and the kind of like my feeling uneasy with the idea of a refurbished iPad. Because I really don't like when I don't know what happened to a product that was owned by someone else.
Well, I have some good news for you, Federico. That according to all of our follow-up, your replacement iPad is probably new.
Yay!
So it's I think it's probably actually impossible to know. So Apple used to use a different serial number for refurbished products. That, according to at least one email I have from somebody, I believe that practice has come to an end. But it's still early enough in the cycle that it's probably new. And even if it is remanufactured, like anything you touch or see would be new. So I view that as like you bought a new car, but it has bits of old cars in it because they recycle old cars. Like it's not like someone returned an iPad and they shipped it to you directly without like scrubbing the guy's fingerprints off. So I think you're fine, but I think it's probably new. So hopefully that helps you sleep better at night.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, you could try and send it somewhere for DNA testing.
Definitely don't do that. That opens a can of worms you can't reclose.
Mm-hmm.
I think you should send it somewhere for DNA testing. So, Stephen, you've joined the 20th century. Would you like to tell listeners what's next in our document?
Yeah, I really don't understand what is going on here. Are you crazy, Stephen?
So I have a story to tell you.
Is this a midlife crisis?
It may be.
I feel like we all have, just looking at this document today, we all have weird stories to tell. And I think we're going to start with Stephen's story.
So a couple of days ago, I bought an album on iTunes, and I said, "This is great." I was at my Mac. This album came out. Hey, I want to have it on my phone, and so I buy it on my iMac, and I put my phone in its dock to try to sync that album to the phone, like a normal human being used to do, and it just fails. Like I don't get an error message. It's in the right playlist. I confirm this. iTunes just won't move it across the USB cable to the phone. I restart iTunes. I restart my computer. I restart my phone. I sacrifice some small animals. Nothing will make this album cross the whatever it is, 2-foot long USB cable out of my iMac into my phone. It just refuses to work. I don't use iTunes Match, so I can't do that. And this for some reason just was the last straw for me. I know everyone else has had this epiphany, many of you years ago. I'm a little slow, I guess. And so I went to settings on my phone and I deleted all my local music. And I already had a Spotify account because I have an Amazon Echo, and I put Spotify on my home screen. Yesterday I went through and found all the music I want. I downloaded a bunch of music to my phone from Spotify, which is kind of a terrible user experience. You have to like leave the screen on your phone so the app can stay awake. It's terrible. But after many hours, I now have my music library rebuilt in Spotify and much of it local on my phone. And so yeah, so I'm all in on trying this. I don't know if it's like on the Mac. It's weird because iTunes on the Mac, like, yes, it's old. And by the way, as a sub point to all this, if you don't listen to App Stories, the podcast Federico does with John Voorhees, it's really good. And this week, y'all talked about iTunes on the Mac being replaced. It's like, as I was going through this yesterday, I was listening to that podcast, and I felt like you were my two life coaches, like urging me down the road doing this.
So let me ask you this.
Okay.
So the choice of Spotify comes primarily because you have an Amazon Echo, and so
Yes.
you want to have that integration.
Well, and I'm already paying for Spotify. I didn't want to
Okay.
I have
Sure.
problems with the idea of Apple Music of like mixing my old library and like streaming stuff, and I really dislike the music app in general. So, but primarily it was I already pay for Spotify. Why not
Sure.
give it a shot?
So let me ask you this. What happens if you stick with this, if you keep streaming music?
Yes.
What happens when the HomePod comes out?
I don't think I'm going to buy a HomePod. I really like the Echo. I have too much stuff that's Echo dependent now that the HomePod won't be able to do easily.
Like what?
Like a lot of I like a lot of the news stuff that it does. Like
Okay.
every evening we're making dinner, we have the thing read the news to us. I have some IFT triggers now, so we've talked on the show about the Canary, how that's tied to it. Like the HomePod could take over all my HomeKit stuff because I don't install any smart stuff, or I try not to, that the HomeKit and Echo both can't talk to. I guess the only thing that the Echo can talk to in my home that a HomePod cannot is the thermostat. But I already feel really like embedded in the Echo ecosystem. I have 3 of them now.
Could you call it an ecosystem, maybe?
Oh, Mike, please. Come
Yo,
on.
I'm back, everyone!
That's really good. I'm deep in the Amazon ecosystem, and
Nice.
I want to try the HomePod. Like, I'm really curious how it sounds because the Echo sounds like garbage for music. But Amazon could fix that tomorrow with a new Echo, and I'd be perfectly happy.
Okay.
I want to
Okay.
take a poll. I want to start a poll on how long it is until you just give up and go back to your local music again. This feels like such a Steven thing, right? Like
Yeah.
to do this, to go through all the effort and then just give it up like a week later.
Like when he bought the MacBook and he did a video and then he changed to another
Yep.
computer.
Yep. Or like Remember the Milk or Evernote or basically anything.
I'm going to go with 3 weeks to 1 month
Ooh, that's
before
good.
he goes back. Yeah.
Wow.
All right, I'm going to take the up to 3 weeks point then on this. Because I feel like a month. That's pretty. Like I'm gonna take up to 3 weeks, and then Federico, you
Okay,
can have
okay.
like between 3 to 4
Okay.
weeks.
Okay.
One thing, so I am in this process of learning all the things that Spotify can do that everyone else already knew. But like so far, one of my favorite things is that if I have music playing on my computer, I can control it from my phone. Like it's really like the integration is really nice. I'm listening to something in my car, and I get out of my car and I walk into my office. I can just open Spotify and like pick up right where I left off. Like some of that stuff that Apple Music and iTunes should totally do, but it doesn't because iTunes on the Mac is holding it back.
There's still a feature somewhere inside of Spotify that you might enjoy. It's in the Mac app somewhere where you can upload local music to Spotify and download it to your phone. So if you have like a specific live recording, you can still do that.
Which I do. Yeah, I definitely have some stuff like that that's kind of stranded in the old library. I know that So it can see local files. I wonder if I try to, add to queue. I don't know, save to your library. There's some options here. So I need to dig into that because I definitely have some stuff that I do not want to leave behind in the old library. So maybe that means that I still sync that stuff to my phone or try to whenever whatever bug I hit is resolved. So we'll see. We will see how it goes.
Yeah, it's somewhere. I know it's still in there somewhere. I used to do that feature. I used to use that feature quite a lot, and I believe it's still in there. So it's worth digging around. But I'm pleased. I'm pleased you're using Spotify. These services, they're very, very convenient, and I'm looking forward to you living that convenience.
Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. We'll check back in, I guess.
All right, today's show is brought to you in part by our friends at Casper, the company that have created an outrageously comfortable mattress that will sell directly to you, eliminating commission-driven inflated prices. Casper's award-winning mattress was developed by their engineers in-house. It has a sleek design and will be delivered to you in an impossibly small box that makes it easy to get up the stairs. In addition to their mattress, Casper also offer an adaptive pillow and soft, breathable sheets so you can really sleep in that Casper lifestyle if you want to. Their engineers spent thousands of hours developing the Casper mattress. It is obsessively engineered at a shockingly fair price, so there is no surprise that it has an average of 4.8 stars across more than 30,000 online reviews. Casper's San Francisco research and development team have developed a proprietary foam that relieves pressure and increases airflow. They combined it with a springy comfort layer to contour to your body to help keep you cool as well throughout the night. This means that Casper mattresses have just the right sink and just the right bounce. All of Casper's mattresses are offered to you at great prices, and they are designed and developed in America. They've cut the hassle and costs of dealing with showrooms. They're passing those savings directly to you, and then you don't have to go down to a mattress showroom and sit on the mattresses and see if they're right for you. It's funny, when I was in New York, I saw some mattress showrooms, and every time I saw a mattress showroom, I was just had the words of the Casper ad just playing in my mind. It was really funny. Now, Stephen, I know that you have a Casper mattress at home. I have not seen it. I stayed at your house, but I actually didn't see your mattress. I didn't ask to go test the mattress. So can you tell me what your mattress is like?
I think you really should have. You could just jumped right on it. It would have been maybe a little awkward.
I don't want to tell you.
It's super great. So we had one of those big foam things before, which was fine, but you'd always be hot because you kind of sink into it. And in Memphis, that's a problem because it's hot here.
Very hot.
And one of my favorite things about the Casper is that you still have a bunch of those benefits of foam mattress, really soft, really comfortable, but you don't sink down into it, so you're not all hot and gross when you wake up. It sleeps very comfortably even in the hot southern summer.
Buying a Casper mattress is so easy and risk-free. They offer free delivery and free returns to the US, Canada, and the UK as well. With Casper, you can actually get to sleep on their mattress before you make your decision. You can try it out for 100 nights to decide if the Casper mattress is the mattress you want to spend a third of your life on. And if you don't love it for any reason, they'll pick it up and refund you everything. You can get $50 towards any mattress purchase by going to casper.com/connected and using the code CONNECTED at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Thank you so much to Casper for their support of this show. All right. So Alexander sent in something to us which is so perfect for this show. It is a website called productgraveyard.com, and it is a project in which this website features products and services, so web stuff, web services mostly, that have died and or probably been sunsetted. And it has a bunch of details of each of the products. So you can go in, you can click into the product, and it will tell you the cause of death, the product's lifespan, what it's remembered for, and its last known residence, which I thought was hilarious. And there is a really good entry for kind of friend of the show, Everpix, which was one of the first products that we really kind of went into in depth that got shut down. And there is a nice 2011 to 2013 in memoriam page on the Product Graveyard website, so you can go and see it yourself. I just thought this was really funny and just something worth putting in. They have 1,057 deceased products in their library. Honestly, I have no idea why this thing exists. I don't know. There really isn't really much information on the page that I can find as to why this was set up. But it's there, and It's interesting, it's funny, and it's also kind of sad. But it is something that I think ties quite nicely in with this show. So I thought I would include that in our follow up.
I'm flipping through this and I'm trying to find the worst startup name, and I think I did it.
All right.
So there is IZ3D. IZ3D designs and develops stereoscopic 3D visualization systems. So,
I mean, are you sure it's worse than I got to voila?
That's pretty bad.
And hold on. I cannot say this, but this product was called. Hold on, it was called Duxboard, and the logo is a duck. And Duxboard allowed you to visualize and monitor your data in a single platform.
That's good.
Oh, that's good. No, I mean, how could it have failed?
Yeah. There's a dot cloud right there on the same page.
Duxboard lived between 2011 and 2014, and it was a web app. So, yeah. I wanted to ask you, now that we've talked about this website, what happens if this website shuts down?
I think at that point we have to take over and create the product graveyard.com.
Have you ever wondered what happens to the guardian of the graveyard when the guardian dies?
I guess it just goes to the guardian's child to look after. Right? That's been my assumption.
That is a very grim life goal, to perpetuate the role of a graveyard guardian forever.
Mm-hmm.
I want to try and lift us out of this funk that we've accidentally walked our way into.
I found Groove Shark.
Oh, you found what?
Groove Shark.
Groove Shark. Yeah, that's the thing.
Groove Shark.
What did they do?
It was music, I think.
There are a lot of companies that start with my. So My Team Zone, MyHomeKey.com, MyCube, My Front Steps, My Shape, which is not MySpace, My Shape, and my personal favorite, MyLackey.com.
Oh no, that's so bad.
What about Captain with 2 P's for some reason? Captain. Like,
this is so part bad. Of the reason your product fails is because nobody can find your website. It's like, what's the name of your product? Captain, but it's spelled with 2 P's. Like, I heard a thing once which I really liked. I think it was Kevin Rose that said this. It's like, if you can't tell me the name of your product in a bar, I can't invest in it.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Are you saying that Rotor Communications Corporation is not a good name?
So I want to tell you a little story.
Okay.
Me and Adina, we were going out to the beach and we were on the ferry. We're sitting on the ferry. We're on the top deck of the ferry going out to the beach. And we're just sitting there and the ferry isn't moving for a while and we're like 5 or 10 minutes past the time period and we keep hearing this like siren. There's like a siren playing and like we didn't know where it's coming from. We're sitting on a boat. It could be anything. It's like just like a do, do, do sound like that. Then all of a sudden, my phone goes crazy, and I have 3 text messages from Adina that are saying that she's sounded an emergency call and has given me her location. There were 3 of these messages that came through, right? So it's like Adina is in an emergency. I want to see if I can find. I'm going to find the exact wording for you. But these came in. Right? And then once that one came in, we had another one, like a 4th one. But this is whilst we're looking at her phone, right? So it said, emergency SOS, Adina Niamtu has made an emergency call. You are receiving this message because Adina has listed you as an emergency contact. And it sends her location, her pin on a map. So we had no idea what was going on. We're looking at her phone. There was nothing happening. And then like a green bar would appear at the top of the phone, right? And then the green bar would go away, and it was calling 911.
Oh, no.
So she'd also made 5 911 calls.
It's not good.
With varying lengths. The phone is just doing this on its own. So I was like, turn the phone off. Like, I have no idea what's going on, but we need to stop you from calling 911. So she turns her phone off. And Then, like, we have no idea what's going on, right? So it stopped, obviously, because the phone was off. So she turns her phone on again. And a little while later, we hear a siren. Then another call is made. Then her brother calls, because this is like 10 minutes have passed at this point. Her brother calls because he's an emergency contact as well. So he thinks there is an emergency. Right? So that's dealt with. He's all okay. And then I'm like, what is going on here? So I start Googling. At this point, a fifth emergency call had been made at that point. There was 5 total, and this was the 5th one. I'm like, why is this happening? Can any of you guess what had happened? Why this was happening?
So let me ask you 2 questions. Was Adina wearing an Apple Watch?
Not at that moment, she wasn't.
Does Adina have an iPad?
Adina does have an Apple Watch. She wasn't wearing it. She does have an iPad.
The watch was in her bag.
The watch was in her bag.
Was on somehow, or the button got smashed in.
It was on, and the button was being just held.
Oh, man. Wow.
So it was making the calls, triggering the emergency SOS. Turns out, if you just hold the button for a long period of time, it will trigger the emergency SOS. And will continue to do it over and over again. Now that I don't think is the right course of action.
No, especially because the watch was in her bag. It was not on her wrist.
Yeah.
So why would you trigger multiple emergency calls while the user is not wearing the Apple Watch?
I mean, I get one, but it was 5 times. So, like, we were worried, like, the boat wasn't leaving. Like, oh my God, are they sending, like, a helicopter? Like, what is going on right now? Right? But, like, 911 obviously get this because the calls were 35 seconds, 15 seconds, 2 seconds, and then they were rejecting them. So they must have some kind of system that understands either where the call is coming from, like what has triggered it, so like they know it's an Apple Watch or whatever, I don't know, or that they can see that it's like an error. Yeah. But yeah, so we worked it out, and then I was like, take that watch out of your bag, turn it off, and put it on your wrist. We're not dealing with this anymore. So yeah, there you go. It makes a little siren sound. The watch was making a siren sound from her bag, but we didn't realize that was the case. And it just kept calling 911 over and over and over again.
Wow,
that's no good.
So that is a funny story, a bit of a mystery, and a word of warning to everybody.
I once had a customer a long time ago when I was doing consulting, and she would get to work, and her MacBook Pro would be hot in her bag, and like she was like waking up, and it was a very similar thing, except she had a Bluetooth mouse that she wasn't turning off, and so it would get like jostled in her bag. And it would move the cursor and wake the computer up. But, of course, the computer's closed in a bag, so it would just get, like, super hot. And it was like this cycle, like the machine would wake up, and it would, like, do things. Like, sometimes things would be done, like System Preferences would be open, or, like, something she was working on would have a bunch of crazy things in it because the mouse was, like, getting moved around and jostled as she, walked and put the bag in her car and stuff. It's a weird thing until you figure out, what's going on.
There are already a bunch of people in the chat room saying that they've done this exact thing with the Apple Watch to the point where people are just turning the feature off. I think I may do that, actually. I didn't know you could. I think I'm going to, once we're done today, I'm just going to turn this feature off from Adina's watch. It's coming to the iPhone, this thing as well, right? Was it like you press the home button 5 times and it activates an emergency mode?
Yep. So what it does, so I'm going to do mine right now.
Oh, no, don't call
So it brings up a new screen that has slide to power off, and then medical ID, and then emergency SOS. So you have to drag over. So if I drag it over, I can see my medical ID. There's a picture of me and weight and sort of stuff. But that's also what's being referred to as cop mode, where you have to re-enter your PIN to unlock the phone. It doesn't. Yeah,
because when you do this,
it disables Touch ID.
Yeah, it just, you hit it 5 times, and then Touch ID doesn't work anymore, right? Like you have to enter your code in. So like if you're in a sticky situation, you hit the home button 5 times, and then it disables Touch ID, which is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's great that it's there, but yeah, it's definitely can be done accidentally.
Yeah, I wonder if there is a way to trigger the emergency call automatically from that, like in the way that there is from the Apple Watch, because I would be concerned about that. I
don't think there is. I think you've got to slide it over.
Okay.
You got to use that little multi-touch slider.
I
Multi-touch
hope
slider.
that's the case. But yeah, so there you go. Turns out you just hold that button down and you will continue to call 911 over and over and over again until somebody works out what's happened.
Oh, I'm glad it wasn't a real emergency.
Me too. Apple has killed the Apple Music Festival. It's dead. 10 years and it's gone away.
Yeah. Rest in peace, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting thing for me. Like, it kind of seems like Apple confirmed this to some music industry blogs, websites. It feels kind of to me now more than ever it makes sense for them to have this big Apple Music Festival. Like, making live recordings of these festivals available to Apple Music subscribers, making the videos available to Apple Music subscribers. That seems like a more compelling use case than ever before. Like, the iTunes Music Festival always felt like this weird thing that they kind of just did for the sake of doing it. But, I mean, I would maybe argue that in a way, I mean, Stephen, you can disagree with this. I've been wondering if this is true or not. If kind of financially, music is more important to Apple than it's ever been, would be my posit here. Now, I know that, of course, the iPod was a huge, massive important part of the company, but it was maybe more sales of the iPod than sales of music that was important.
Yeah, I think to the bottom line, I think so.
Yeah, and now like the services revenue is such an important part of Apple from Wall Street's perspective, and Apple Music is a linchpin of that it kind of feels interesting to me now that like to get rid of a potential feature for Apple Music subscribers.
Yeah, I mean, I think that maybe they're trying to focus or like shift focus. Like they're getting rid of this, but then they're also doing a bunch of TV stuff. Like,
yeah.
So that's what kind of comes to mind for me. Like, if this is something that they are getting rid of, then like what's replacing it? And maybe it is that TV stuff. Maybe they're going to do, they used to do a lot more of this where a band would go into an Apple store and like do something like acoustically or whatever, and then they'd record it and release it. I forget what the name of those were. They had a name for that series, but maybe they're doing more stuff like that and not this like giant festival concert thing. I don't know.
Well, there's this article in the show notes from musicbusinessworld.com where they mention the fact that it seems like Apple has been like focusing in some other areas. So there has been some concerts recently that have been sponsored by Apple Music or kind of in conjunction with. So artists like Haim and Arcade Fire have done gigs where Apple has been a partner of it. And they also in last summer, Apple Music was the sponsor of Drake's 32-date tour. So it might be that they're kind of pushing the Apple Music branding into already existing events as opposed to hosting their own. But it is a shame, though, because the iTunes Music Festival, the Apple Music Festival, was always this cool thing that happened in London. And it is a shame that I never got to go to it, even though I applied for tickets every single year.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem, though, right? Like, maybe they want to do more US-based events instead of being in London, you know?
Yeah, maybe that's it. Didn't they do something last year, though? It was South by Southwest, right?
Yeah, it was a South by Southwest. They did some kind of mini concert or something, I think. I don't remember who was the artist, honestly. But yeah, that's the idea, I guess, of doing more, more smaller events throughout the US and other continents, maybe. I don't know. But instead of having to organize this huge event, which must be, not just from a financial perspective, but also from an organizational point of view, it's a big thing to organize. Like a week, 10 days in London, flying artists in and streaming everything and setting up the entire organization and event. That's a lot of time and money, and maybe they think that having more presence at concerts and other events is a better strategy. I don't know. I'm sad because it was kind of cool,
Yeah, it's a thing that I think we'll miss, but I'm interested to see if they push into working on other events, and maybe it will, like, the spirit will live on of the music festival, but as a more segmented and something that's spread around a little bit more. But yeah, it's something that I will miss anyway. But it's interesting to see where they're going to go with this. Because I would expect it's definitely not a money thing, right? It's not like that they can't afford this. I assume that there is just some change in direction here that they're going to start to put in place. All right, today's show is also brought to you by Squarespace. You can enter the offer code WORLD at checkout and you'll get 10% off your first purchase. Make your next move with Squarespace. They'll let you easily create that website you have for your next idea, project, or event. With a unique domain, award-winning templates, and more, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform that will let you put online whatever it is you want to put there. There's nothing to install. There's no patches to worry about. No upgrades needed. Squarespace have got you covered. The websites are so easy to build. They have these beautiful templates that you can tweak to your heart's content. And I am building a Squarespace website right now for my wedding. They have whole templates devoted to weddings, and they set all the pages up for you, and then you just go in and change what you need to change. You change the fonts you want, change some colors, change some images. It's really good. I like the fact that the templates, you can nuke them and just start afresh, but you can also start with these like suggested pages that will go with a specific template or a specific idea. So it's really useful to know like, oh yeah, I should probably have a page for this, or I should probably have a page for that. It's really cool. But you can create anything with Squarespace. Maybe you want to make an online store. Maybe you want to make a blog. Maybe you want to make a site for your business, for your restaurant. It doesn't matter what it is. You can make it on Squarespace. They have award-winning 24/7 customer support if you need anything. And as I mentioned, you can also get domain names of them as well. Squarespace plans start at just $12 a month. You can sign up for a free trial today with no credit card required just by going to squarespace.com and then use the offer code WORLD at checkout. You'll get 10% off your first purchase and show your support for Connected by doing that. I want to thank Squarespace for the continued support of Relay FM. Squarespace, make your next move, make your next website.
So Siri has moved in with Craig. I know that seems like it's just gossip, but the story is, this was the end of last week, I think, that the Apple leadership page now reflects that the Siri organization is now underneath Craig Federighi. It was previously under Eddie Q, which I think maybe made sense in the beginning, but I think for a long time seemed sort of a stranger and stranger place for Siri to be. And now Apple has changed that, at least publicly. We don't know when it actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
My guess is maybe it's been this way for a while, but according to the public page now, this is the deal. Siri has moved.
As our resident historian, Stephen,
yes,
can you explain why Siri was ever under Q's division?
Q used to have like an oddball assortment of services, and I think that has streamlined over the years. And it started as an acquisition. Maybe that it just wasn't. I think as it has grown in importance, it's become stranger that it was under his command. I think it started as like it's just a service on the iPhone, and now it's sort of a whole business and a whole super important part of all their products. And so I think it's just sort of evolved out of his purview.
Because
wasn't
there a time when Q had kind of like all cloud services, like Mobile Me and stuff was under Q's division?
I think so, yeah.
And that was before Forstall left, right? When the divisions were much different and it got restructured after Forstall. But for some reason, Siri remained under Q's division. I think probably incorrectly. I just don't think that was the right place for it at that point. Because I would expect that they've done this and they've moved it under Craig's banner because they want to make it more core to the operating system, would be my thinking.
When you consider all the integrations that Siri has with iOS and the fact that Federighi oversees, has to oversee like stuff like SiriKit, for example, the frameworks and the all the extensions and the direct hooks into between Siri and the rest of the local OS. You could argue that Siri is as much as a cloud service as it is a native system feature, and so I think it definitely makes more sense to have the same team and the same set of people look into this stuff, even if it means they have to bring in new kinds of expertise, because you need both cloud people and local OS like Foundation and iOS people to make Siri and to make sure that it works. But if we consider Q more of the Hollywood impresario type of guy that seems to be his role these days, it makes more sense to have Siri be part of Federighi's role rather than Q's.
Yeah, I guess I would hope that it signals more of a change for Siri, maybe for Siri to step up a little bit more. You know, I think we would all agree that the advancement of Siri has been slow. Like, even as Siri Kit has started to become a thing, the intents that are being added to Siri Kit are not being added at a breakneck speed.
Yeah.
And so maybe it is time, considering, I mean, we're going to talk about just a slew of smart speaker news in a moment, but I think we can all agree that maybe Siri is becoming a bit of a thorn in Apple's side as their competitors are, to varying levels of success, boosting their efforts, right? When you look at something like the HomePod, which we all believed was going to be the Siri speaker, at least the last time we saw anything about it, has limited Siri functionality, when really that product, as everybody imagined it, would be the Siri speaker, not an Apple Music speaker with some Siri stuff built in.
So that's kind of strange, because if you look at the HomePod specs and, the leaks that came out a few weeks ago, there are all the Siri questions that you can ask natively on iOS. You should be able to get a response from the HomePod. It's just that they didn't open up Siri Kit to the HomePod at all. And that's kind of strange, especially if you consider how Apple has been pushing this expansion of Siri to third-party apps. But it also kind of makes sense because there's no app store for the HomePod. And so we go back to the problem that I think we discussed a few months ago of Siri for Apple is both local and in the cloud, in the sense that there's no concept of Siri Kit that lives on the web and you can ask, for example, to do something with Todoist if you don't have the Todoist app installed on your device. So because you cannot install apps on your HomePod, therefore you can only ask native features that are, that Apple directly makes and puts into the HomePod firmware. So the bigger question, I guess, is how can Apple follow up with to the Amazon Echo, to the Google Home, and now if Sonos is doing something perhaps, how can they turn the HomePod into an app platform without running into the limitations of watchOS? That is, it depends on the iPhone for communication between apps, which makes everything slow and less reliable. So how can they expand Siri to support a variety of commands without having to users do stuff like install this app on your phone or make sure your iPhone is within range, So how can they do that? I have no idea.
We'll come back to the smart speaker stuff in a second, but can we talk about Eddie Q for a moment?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what do you want to talk about?
All right. So I feel like over time, Eddie has become, at least in our community, like a joke. He's become a joke. Like people use him as a meme, right? Like there are jokes made about Eddie, and I think a common consensus seems to have arisen that Eddie is no good, right? Like that he is bad at his job. And I mean, some of the thinking around this is like a bad Apple Music introduction, right? Like just really bad, just bad. And no Apple TV deals, no TV deals have been announced, right? And like people assume, and I think rightly so, that these fall under his purview. This is his part of the business. So I kind of wonder, like, I'm assuming that he must be good at his job, or parts of his job that we don't see, because Tim Cook seemed to have no real problem getting rid of Scott Forstall when Forstall was considered to be a problem. So if Eddie Q was bad, I'm sure that he wouldn't be around anymore, right? I don't know, but then, at the same time, two big parts of his organization have been removed from him. But that could mean a million different things, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's bad at his job, but that maybe he was given things that he never really should have been managing in the first place. So when things start to look like they're going wrong, it's because, well, they were in the wrong place. Like, Siri shouldn't have been a part of his division, neither should the App Store. Like, it didn't make sense considering the other things that he had to look after. So I wonder, is Eddie Q bad, or has he been dealt a bad hand?
I tend to see Q as the guy that goes to the Hollywood studio people and other executives and makes deals. Now, I don't know what this means specifically. I just have this idea of when Apple needs to go and, have dinner with some folks from Sony, or to convince an artist to put out a video on Apple Music or an exclusive on Apple Music, they send Q. That is totally my interpretation. I'm not sure if this is correct. And I'm sure that the guy has some, like you say, Mike, he has to do something right. Otherwise, it doesn't seem like Tim Cook would just keep him around because they're friends. So either Q is doing something that we have no complete idea of what it is. Like admin stuff or manager type of stuff that is not easily explainable. Like, I don't even know how to describe it, but the way that these deals are made is pretty obscure to me. Or maybe they just keep him around because he's good at convincing people. He's good at talking with the music studios and work out, for example, a commission fee on streaming. He hasn't been doing well with the TV stuff, it seems. So I wonder if his talents reside mostly in the music industry, because that's where I assume, because of iTunes and because of the iPod and because of the Steve Jobs legacy, maybe that's where he has the most
his contacts.
He has more contacts and connections and leverage on other folks in the industry. I just assume. So, but yeah, it is kind of a mystery. Especially considering he hasn't been at keynotes since last year. Was it 2 years ago? I don't remember. I mean, last year he did I Can't Wait to Do It, WWDC. And that was, I think, his last public appearance, maybe?
That's the last chance you get. You say that line and you're done.
No, he did didn't he do a Recode thing?
I was talking about Apple keynotes and introducing Apple stuff. Yeah.
But so here's the thing, right? So about that TV thing. Apple were praised a few months ago, right, when they hired those TV executives, those two Sony executives, right, that were responsible for Breaking Bad and stuff. What if Q did that?
Right, exactly.
I think he probably did. I mean, I think that if that's still under him, then I think that
you would assume that this is what he does, right? Like, and we were talking about, and everyone's been talking about this like $1 billion budget for TV shows. This might be all of his work, right? Like, and again, like I know that Carpool Karaoke and Behind the App, every time, Planet of the Apps hasn't really been met with much fanfare, but I assume he's doing something, right? Like he's this funny guy who is really awkward, but that doesn't mean that he's bad at his job, right? Because he's not good at presentations. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just feel like he must be good. He must be good because he's an executive at the biggest company in the world.
Yeah.
I just have the feeling that maybe Eric Q, Jimmy Iovine, and Dre are just a posse at Apple. They go around and they talk to people. They convince executives to come on board, and they talk to artists and they make deals. They are deal makers, and maybe that is important. I mean, I'm sure that is important to Apple.
Well, in that book, Becoming Steve Jobs, he is praised, right? Like, his abilities are praised then, and this is like, and I think they said that they needed Steve to like close the deals, but like this was earlier on in his career, and that he was apparently like just really good at this stuff. And there are people who have those skills, but those skills don't necessarily transfer into everything else. He might just be really good at schmoozing, and they need that. Apple need that. They've always needed it. They're going to continue to need it. And the thing about like the TV thing, my feeling on that is I expect that the TV industry are very hesitant of Apple because they don't want to become the music industry. because Apple kind of ran
Owned
through
those
it and
guys.
owned it. And they
Yeah.
and I'm sure they don't want Apple to have any more than what they currently have, which is an ability to sell stuff. So that's kind of my feeling on that. Like the reason we haven't seen some Apple TV service, like that's probably why. But I just wanted to talk about it because it's fun. It's fun to make jokes, but I'm sure he's good at his job. But he is also just terrible on stage. So there you go.
Yeah, and I think it's made worse in our community that we like Craig Federighi's kind of the nerd hero, right? And
Yep.
it's harder to care about the media side of the business, and I think a lot of like nerdy people actually loathe the media side of the business. Like they don't want Apple to make TV; they want Apple to make a new Mac Pro.
Yeah.
And I think that gets dumped onto Eddie Q probably unfairly by members of the sort of nerd community.
Yeah.
But there's a person behind the fancy shirt. He has feelings too.
He has a
Sometimes you
heart.
can see more the person than you want through the fancy shirt.
We know it's there.
We all remember.
All right, coming back to smart speakers. There was just a plethora of smart speaker related news in the last week, and I want to just run through some of the things that caught my eye. So, first off, Amazon adds multi-room audio support to the Echo. So you can now create groups of Amazon Echo devices like the Echo Show, and the Echo Dot, even when the Echo Dot is attached to speakers. And you can put them into groups and you can play music. So you can be like, hey, Echo, play this song on everything. And you set up a group, it's called Everything, and it's all of your devices. So you can group devices into one big group or into singular groups. Right now, I think only one device can be attached to only one group only. I expect they'll change this in the future because it's really weird. But it works. I have heard it in action. It works. It sounds great. Like it's like a Sonos. It works. And Amazon is also working with third-party manufacturers to create an API to do this. And they have said they are currently working with Bose, Sound United, and Samsung to put their stuff into, and I assume it's the Echo Assistant, into these boxes and then have the multi-room audio support throughout. And this feels like it's something that could finally kill Sonos, because this is Sonos' thing. And now Amazon's like, yeah, we just added it to our thing for free. Like people can just do this now.
Yeah. I wonder if they're on Product Graveyard. Let's look. Sonos.
So you say this, right? But Sonos also announced a smart speaker event, a reveal event on October 4th, right? So I have a theory here. I think this is a Sonos with the Echo functionality built in. That's what I think it is. I think, honestly, if Sonos are trying to build their own smart speaker platform, it will 100% kill the company. It will tank
not a
them
good idea.
immediately. Like they may as well just give it up. Like if they're trying to create their own. So considering that Amazon has already announced a partnership with Sonos, or that like they've already announced that they're working together, right? Like that was announced ages ago. Now they're doing a smart speaker, and Amazon have added multi-room audio support. I think that they're just going to say, hey, we have now deeply integrated with the Amazon Echo platform, and you can use our products as part of it now. We have cheaper ones, we have expensive ones. We're making great hardware for Amazon. That's what I think this event's going to be. Because anything else would be, I think, just a really, really bad idea from Sonos. I just don't see them lasting in this world anymore. Like, it reminds me of Everpix. Because these services, like Everpix and Picture Life, they could exist when they are on their own. But when these huge companies walk into these things and they don't need to make money on these services, there's no way companies like Everpix can survive, right? Because Apple and Google could offer photo storage, and they kind of bake some of the price of it into the fact that you're buying into their ecosystem and hardware. But Everpix, like, that was 100% of their business. They needed to make money from it, otherwise they couldn't exist. And I look at Sonos in the same way. Sonos, if they're trying to build their own platform here, they're just not going to be able to do it because Amazon is always going to offer a cheaper alternative. They're just always going to, because they have all of the Prime stuff to back it up. and Apple are always going to be able to offer premium stuff at similar prices, but with ecosystem lock-in. So Sonos don't have a place here, I think, if they're going to try and do it on their own anymore. So I expect that Sonos event is where they announce their Amazon Echo Sonos speakers. That's my prediction.
They are testing the integration with the Echo.
Yep.
If you have an Amazon Echo and you set up the Sonos speaker, and you can sort of chain the two and ask, play music in my kitchen or play music in my living room. And I think you're right, because, having to own two separate devices, it just creates, these integrations, they can always be a bit flaky. And it just seems like a better solution to me to have the Echo Intelligence and voice features directly built into the Sonos speaker. And so I think you're onto something here, Mike. And I long term, it just would make a lot of sense for Amazon to buy Sonos and to use whatever talent and hardware and design taste they have and make better speakers sold by Amazon, honestly.
So I was having this conversation with someone the night before Amazon added the multi-room audio support, right? Of Amazon should buy Sonos so they can build these amazing speakers and the multi-room audio. Well, I thought that, like you, Federico, because it makes perfect sense. Amazon clearly doesn't need that.
No, they don't.
Right, because they've worked it out on their own. I think it made sense for them to buy Sonos a little while ago, and I think that maybe Sonos were hoping that would happen. But I think Amazon has proven that they don't need to do that. But I think what Amazon does need is premium speakers for their system. Like really good speakers, and Sonos can make those.
It would be interesting to see what happens now that we are witnessing, I think, this consolidation on two fronts. There's Amazon and products with Echo integration on one hand, and on the other we have Apple that is coming out with the HomePod and with the AirPlay 2 standard, which in theory, Apple says that they have a bunch of brands on board and that speakers will come out as soon as iOS 11 is released. Some new speakers and other, some recent ones will get software updates for AirPlay 2. And AirPlay 2 introduces, multi-room support and deeper iOS integration. It's even got some features that, it can kind of work like the Sonos system in that, if you have music playing or a podcast playing on a AirPlay 2 speaker, and if a sound notification comes in or if a phone call comes in, it doesn't pause playback on the AirPlay 2 speaker. So this sort of battle between speakers either made by Amazon or compatible with Amazon versus speakers made by Apple or compatible with Apple's APIs, that will be interesting to see how it goes. But I do believe this is the sort of the war that we're going to see on the smart speaker front, and I'm counting out Google because maybe I should include Google, but it just seems like I should. But it seems to me like Amazon at least has captured more of the mindset, at least among us tech people.
I think Google are the Windows Phone in this argument.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
But I wouldn't count them out yet.
Not yet.
Because they have the money, resources, and patience to make Google Home more of a thing. Plus, Android, right? Like, that is a huge, huge ecosystem. And if they can continue to just push Google Home into more stuff, people are going to want these more and more because it works with their phone. Right, like I think that is a thing that will continue. I just think that right now Google is behind in a couple of ways. I mean, they did just announce the first third-party speakers and devices that are going to be integrating with their SDK. So one is coming from Anker, another is coming from a Chinese manufacturer called Mobvai, and LG have announced that like a bunch of their home appliances are going to have Google Home built in. So they're making moves, right? They're continuing to make moves as well. Like it's Amazon is doing stuff, Google is doing stuff, like everyone is doing things right now which continue to make this stuff more interesting, especially Microsoft and Amazon are teaming up to get their two voice assistants to talk to each other. This is an official partnership from Amazon and Microsoft. So the Amazon Assistant and Cortana, Microsoft Assistant. I feel like I can say Cortana because I can't imagine many people are using it, so I'm going to keep doing that one where I won't say the Amazon one out loud because it's upsetting. So soon you will be able to summon either assistant from the other assistant. So you can say, hey, Echo, tell Cortana to do this or whatever. Now, whilst that sounds weird and clunky, think, for example, if you use a Windows PC, you could trigger your Hue lights from your Windows PC.
Sure, if you can beat them, join them.
And that's what they're doing. There's a great quote from Nick Wingfield at the New York Times. Dan Moran quoted this in his article on Six Colors. These two companies have struggled in the smartphone business, which makes it hard to get people using their speaker services, their voice services, outside homes and offices. So by pairing these two things together, they're like spreading their bets further. So I find it really interesting. And I think it's more on the getting Amazon Echo into PCs is more interesting than anything else. Putting Cortana into my Echo I don't really know what that does for me. Maybe I can control my Windows PC. I actually don't know what Cortana can do. But it's super interesting to see two competing companies like this joining forces. It's Amazon, man. They are really going for this, and now they are leading. Yeah. Like there is no joke anymore. They are pushing further into software, more into hardware. They have products they're releasing all the time. They have integrations that they're continuing to push on. They're doing deals with huge companies. Like, you can say which service you prefer, but right now they are owning this space. Like they've got it; it's theirs. And everybody else, I think, is catching up.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I kind of disagree. Well, we'll get to this in a few minutes, I guess.
Well, I mean, as I say, you can have your favorite, but like if you're looking at the smart device, smart speaker, voice assistant thing,
right? Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
they are owning the majority of the space right now because so much of the conversation is focused around them and the things that they are doing.
That is true, but it's also true that the Echo is available in like 3 countries, and it's I feel like it's important to contextualize like how relevant a smart speaker alone is if it doesn't work with your smartphone or computer. I guess it's.
Well, you can use the app. You can use the Amazon app.
Sure, but it feels like if you take into account the ecosystem of services, it feels like Google even is in a better position than Amazon. You could say because of Android, because of the whole suite of products into the same ecosystem, and that's what Apple kind of wants to do as well. And so if you consider the smart speaker alone, Amazon is clearly ahead. But if you consider, the whole thing, like the whole ecosystem, Google is ahead, maybe. And Apple wants.
I feel like that's just like saying, Microsoft are, because there are PCs everywhere and the PCs can have Cortana in them. Right? Like, I don't necessarily think it's like who has the most devices is winning.
No, not the most devices, but the more versatile ecosystem. I'm trying to find a way to phrase it that makes sense. Like if you want to use an Amazon Echo, you're limited to just the speaker. Whereas if you maybe in a few months, if you have a HomePod, and right now if you have a Google Home, the Google Assistant is everywhere. So you don't have to apply a different set of skills whether you're on your phone or talking out loud in the kitchen. It's always the same service.
Well, this is why I'm saying don't count Google out, because the Google Assistant, which is powering all of this, is available everywhere and on Android natively. But like my point that I'm trying to drive at is if you're looking at where the advancement is coming from, like who is pushing it forward fastest, it's Amazon, I think, right now. Like that they are unrelenting in everything that they're trying to do with the Echo platform. Which I guess brings us to Federico's peculiar story to round out our peculiar stories of this episode.
This is just an experiment that we are trying now, but basically as we came back from our month-long vacation, came back home and we did some reorganization, especially of our bedroom and my corner of the room, which is my mini studio. And we realized just how much stuff we had in there. Like, too many electronics and just stuff with cables everywhere. And like, we had the multiple echoes and the Sonos and a bunch of remotes and the Logitech Harmony and we, both Sylvia and I guess we were caught by an urge to simplify. And yeah, and we've been talking about, especially about the Echo and the limitations that we specifically face with the Echo here, which is we cannot talk to the Echo in Italian, and that can be awkward or weird, especially if you have people over. It's funny if you have close friends, but it's not funny if there's someone who's not, like a real close friend or relative.
And I guess it's worth just for the sake of adding context to this discussion, that you just remind people that you only speak English to us, right? You speak Italian at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I live in Rome and I have Italian friends, and I'm Italian, but I speak a lot of English. Yes, I speak a lot of English, but I speak with you guys or with my friends at Mac Stories and other people for work.
Yeah.
And so the Echo doesn't allow us to talk in Italian. And we also realized, in addition to wanting to simplify and to have like a cleaner look for the house, like less, fewer cables, less complexity. I don't know why that is, but we were both on the same page. And also we realized how much we've been enjoying Siri lately. It's faster when we want to turn on the lights. We use Siri a lot for timers and for triggering scenes, and also to open the camera view, because we're constantly checking in on the dogs when we're not at home. And taking these things together, I said, we should maybe try and see how it goes if we get rid of the Amazon Echo. If we can do what we currently do just by using Siri, and maybe later this year, if I can manage, or maybe next year, if it comes to Italy, to get a HomePod. And in addition to this, there's also the fact that I've been personally, for my English usage, I've been using the Amazon Echo less and less as I've been testing the new iOS 11 domains for SiriKit coming in just a few weeks for taking notes and saving tasks in my task manager. And I realized that a lot of my Amazon Echo usage was about saving tasks in Todoist. And now, without getting into the specifics, this stuff is coming with iOS 11. And I'm really enjoying the fact that I can do this stuff natively on my device, and it's immediately saved into my task manager by using voice. And if you combine that with the fact that I'm not using Spotify anymore, Sylvia and I, we have a family subscription with Apple Music. Taking all these factors together, Siri works in Italian and English. There's a speaker coming. We're using Apple Music a lot more. We're using Siri a lot as in our family, in our household usage. We like Siri because it's faster and it seems more reliable, and we wanted to simplify. The conclusion of this feels kind of obvious to me, that we wanted to have a simpler setup. Just Siri, just Apple stuff, fewer third-party dependencies. And I'm not sure if this is going to work out for now, especially because the HomePod is not out yet. And the fact that I don't like the way that hands-free Siri activation works on iOS. I don't fully like it. I don't fully trust it. So I'm not sure if I will be able to live with a Amazon Echo free world for at least a couple of months, if I can manage to get a HomePod from the US or the UK or whatever. But I can tell you this, that it feels great. It feels very nice to have, fewer cables, fewer accessories, and it reminds me of when I used to be a Mac user and I was constantly fiddling around and tweaking things with scripts and apps, and in a way that's I've sort of had the same realization with home automation. I just want to buy stuff that works with HomeKit, that works with Siri. Then I don't have to think about integrations and IFTTT and all that stuff. I plug it in, I authenticate with my iCloud account, and it works. And it's kind of beautiful for now.
There's a few things. So one, it's very surprising to me in general, because you were our patient zero for the Echo, right? Mm-hmm. You were the one that got all of us involved in this. Are you losing any functionality by leaving this, or any of your smart home devices that you were using? Have any of them been taken away because of this?
So that's the other point. No, because I only have my only smart home devices are Ulights and a bunch of HomeKit sensors. Okay. I cannot install because this is not our house, we're renting. I cannot install stuff that works with the Echo, like thermostats or door locks or other of these devices. So
everything else can go along with it. I guess that's the good thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But the thing that I would really miss, and why I have no intention of getting rid of these devices, is I just love walking around my house and speaking commands.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I agree with you. Like, I just don't get the same level of accuracy from using the hands-free Siri stuff. And I mean, really, the main use in our house for having an Echo is to turn our lights on and off and to set timers, right? And like being able to just speak those things into the air and it happen, that we love it. It's fantastic. I would miss that a lot, and I really don't feel like the hands-free Siri is good enough.
No, and that's why I'm really excited actually for the HomePod, even if I'm still not sold on the name. I feel like I'm maybe at a point in my life where I don't have time for tweaking things constantly anymore, and I just want to choose an ecosystem and stick with it, and and make sure that it works for everybody in the house. And right now, at least for us, for dual language support and for the minimal HomeKit devices that we, setup that we have, that is Apple and Siri. And we like Apple Music, we like Siri, we like the way that it works. And there's a speaker coming, even if it doesn't have the third-party integrations that I would like it to have. It seems to me like this need for simplification is now better served by getting rid of these other devices, which include, the Logitech remote, the Sonos, multiple Echoes. Basically, the only things left are Apple stuff, HomeKit cameras, and again, also for the cameras, I'm really hoping that, the Canary, the Logitech Circle, all of these devices will get HomeKit software updates, because this is now possible with iOS 11. So the more I can switch to the Apple ecosystem, the less I have to think about, keeping up with external integrations, APIs, different sets of commands, the better. So right now, the only stuff I have is Apple stuff, my video game consoles, and my Synology. And that's about it. So that's kind of... It's very refreshing. There's a very refreshing simplicity that I was kind of missing. I don't know. Maybe I'm turning into Steven. I'm getting older. I don't know. I don't know.
Steven, do you want to take a bet on how long it is until Federico comes back to the Amazon?
What did he say for me on Spotify? Between 3 weeks and a month?
Yeah.
I think it's probably going to be. I'm going to say 6 to 8 weeks before something in HomeKit or Siri just breaks his will to live.
Yeah, see, I was going to say by the end of the year. Because I reckon that like the HomePod will come out, no date for Italy. It comes out, no one is like super enthused about it, and he's just like, forget it, and goes back to the Echo.
Okay, we'll follow up on this. All right.
Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Balance. Balance are the team behind Balance for Mac, which is the app for helping you monitor all of your bank balances and card transactions. The Balance folk have just launched Balance Open. This is a free open source Mac app for checking Coinbase. Coinbase is a popular marketplace for cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and Balance Open is the best open source digital wallet to help you keep track of everything. If what I'm saying to you sounds like another language, it's totally fine, because Balance wants to help teach you about cryptocurrencies, and they're going to do that by starting you on your way. The first 1,000 people that go to bal.money/relay, that's BAL.money/relay, will receive $2 in the Ethereum currency for free as a gift from Balance. Go check it out today, find out more, and try out Balance Open. I will say I was just in an airport. Whilst in an airport, I was in a bunch of different newsstands and, like those magazine shops like Hudson News seems to be this one that's prevalent across US airports. And there were multiple magazines talking about blockchains and cryptocurrencies, like on the front page of them, and how it's about to disrupt everything. So I've just learned a little bit about this stuff, having been talking to the folk over at Balance recently. This feels like a real big thing that's coming. So I recommend maybe trying to get just a little bit more familiar with some of it, and Balance is a great place to start. So bal.money/relay, and you'll get you on your way with $2 in Ethereum. Thanks to Balance for their support of this show. All right, so we are a week away, really burying the lead today. We are a week away from an Apple event. It is going to happen at the Steve Jobs Theater at Apple Park on September 12th. It's going to be the first event there. We're going to be recording the day after, as we like to do on this show, so we let kind of the news settle in, piece together all of the stuff that we want to piece together. What do we think is going to be announced? Federico, what do you think is going to happen?
All right, so I think it's safe to say we are expecting 3 new iPhones, and I'm confident that what people are referring to as the 7S and 7S Plus will actually be called the iPhone 8 and iPhone 8 Plus, and that the special, the all-new, all-screen, top-notch iPhone will be called something like the iPhone Edition or iPhone Pro or iPhone X, I don't know, but some other name that makes it different, but it doesn't also make the iPhone 8 line less important. Mm-hmm. So I think we'll see 3 new iPhones. And then we can go over some of these individually, but I think we'll get the Apple Watch 3 with longer battery life and LTE support as a separate version. You can, if you like iPads, if you want, you can get the cellular model. And I think we're going to see the 4K Apple TV and 4K content on iTunes. And after the event, we'll look into the specifics of 4K and we'll be able to follow up and say, yes, it is indeed based on the HEVC video codec, as Steven and I speculated, I think it was last week.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So these are my main 3, iPhones, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and 4K on iTunes.
So we can dig into these things in a little bit more detail where we want to, but just to kind of round out general predictions, the Mac? I mean, there are Mac products still coming this year. Anything?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see anything. They showed the iMac Pro at WWDC. I think they could do a press release, and when that thing's ready, that's a press release. I don't think we're going to see anything about the Mac Pro this calendar year. So I just don't see there being enough Mac stuff to warrant stage time at this point. I mean, they just did the MacBook Pros.
What about High Sierra?
I mean, maybe. I mean, usually, so if they do one event in the fall, we'll see like a High Sierra recap, but there's no hardware to tie it to. And I don't think the iMac Pro is going to ship early in October, so I don't think there's going to be an event then. So, I mean, High Sierra may get a little time on stage, but 3 new phones new Apple Watch, new Apple TV, that's plenty for an event. This could be a Mac-free event, I think.
What about the HomePod? Anything? I mean, there's still more to tell. Are they going to show that now? Will they do an event later on in the year, which maybe has more information about the iMac Pro and the HomePod? Like, would they build an event around that?
I mean, that's the wild card. Like, do they recap what's at WWDC about the HomePod, or if it's going to ship in December, maybe we see a late October or even November event, and maybe it's HomePod and iMac Pro. I mean, maybe that would be unusual, but they've also usually don't pre-announce things that are going to ship months out.
Like, I'm expecting more, because like we kind of glossed over this earlier, but like from the things that me and Federico were saying, there was a disparity, right? So Federico was right in saying like the HomePod leak showed a bunch of Siri stuff, but at WWDC they were like limited Siri integration. These are the things that Siri will do, and maybe some more. Like there was like they were very like hand wavy about Siri's functionality on the HomePod at WWDC, I think. And they were talking about like limited stuff, but then the HomePod firmware leak maybe showed that it could do a bit more. So I think that, as you would expect, they did more work on it, right? Like I think that was always the assumption, is that there was like 6 months to go before the product was going to be released. So there could be some stuff to talk about, or they could wait.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends if they feel like this is the question every year: is there enough for a second event? And that's weird this year because the Macs are all basically up to date except for the Mac Mini and the these future Macs that we are know coming, and then the HomePod was announced 6 months in advance. And so, like, do you go in depth with all the Siri commands and everything the HomePod can do, and people still have to wait another 3 months? Like, that feels weird. So I don't know. That's an interesting little thing, but I agree with Federico in the broad strokes that phones, watch, Apple TV, I think are going to be the tent poles for this event.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I'm really interested to see how they deal with the let's just call it the iPhone Pro and its software. What's the software story in terms of user interactions? The latest rumors suggest there's going to be like a thin bar at the bottom of the screen that you use to swipe up and open multitasking. Maybe you tap the bar to go back home. Maybe you press and hold for Siri. But really how they deal with the status bar, with the notch, which is what everybody is asking for, like how does it work? And how do they present these changes to developers? But more broadly, how does the iPhone Pro and stuff like facial recognition, this new bottom bar that replaces the home button, how does this affect developers who are going to submit iOS 11 software updates? Can they be ready for the new screen of the iPhone Pro in less than a week? Did Apple create graceful fallbacks for the APIs? For example, if you use Touch ID, does it automatically fall back to Face ID recognition in the iOS 11 SDK? And are we going to see already, or maybe not at the event, but shortly thereafter, are we going to see a beta of iOS 11.1, which I don't think, if we looking at previous years, I think it should be coming relatively quickly after iOS 11. So the software story, I think it's really interesting, and especially because developers are going to update their apps, at the event. There's probably going to be the GM seed of iOS 11, but there's also going to be these new APIs for the iPhone Pro. And these seem to me like major changes to authentication into apps, a new form factor for the display, and new ways to, what happens to tab bars, for example, because at the bottom, there's now this home indicator. What happens to full screen usage? Can you, as an app, request to hide the home indicator or not? So there's a bunch of details that I'm sure after the event we'll go look into the iOS documentation and figure out how it works.
So if you think about rumors and conjecture from earlier in the year, wouldn't all of this be so much easier if this iPhone doesn't ship until October?
Yes, it would indeed be so much easier to give developers not 2 days or 3 days to update and submit, but to to have the iPhone come out a month later.
Mm-hmm. And not that this is the reason, like not that like it comes out a month later because of developers, because I don't really think Apple care about that. But like the idea of like, oh, how are we going to deal with it? How are people going to make that work for them? Well, that answer might be given for them by the fact that this iPhone might not ship on the same day as the other ones. But I will say that this leak, these rumors of this idea of this like this line, these multi-touch gestures, etc., I'm very happy because this is what I wanted. What I have been hoping for was that I would get the full screen for the apps that I use, because otherwise, what's the point, right? Like I think I said this in this show. Like, what was the point of giving me a big screen that covers the entire front if there's just a home button on the screen the whole time? Like, it just seems like a waste, right? Like, just a complete waste of that screen if I can't get the full screen of it. And plus, coming from a Plus phone, like, this screen isn't going to be as big as the Plus's screen, but it will give me everything that I want from a big screen phone. Like, the reason that I like a big screen phone is I like to have more content on the screen. And if you take this new screen and go full screen, I will get the same, not the same, but I will get what will feel like just as much, right? Like I'll be able to see loads of tweets, I'll be able to see loads of emails, I'll be able to see loads of messages, right? Like, that's why I like a big screen phone, because I like to have a lot of content on the screen, and I will still get the majority of that, I think, with this phone, because it's long, So I'm excited about that.
And it's gonna be longer, not wider, but it's gonna be longer. So you're gonna be seeing more items in any vertical list or presentation. Not as wide maybe as the iPhone Plus. And I agree. Like, we were speculating on, does Apple create like a function bar with persistent buttons? But in the end, I think probably the idea of fully embracing the screen makes more sense. And you can imagine how Apple is gonna sell this feature with taglines like "full screen is now real full screen," stuff like that. I can see how marketing could help sell that story. And if you combine that with stuff like maybe even more battery, maybe I'm sure improvements to the dual camera system, and maybe even 3D sensing cameras on the front of the device, maybe even an API for developers, we could be looking at maybe even a portrait mode for the selfie camera. And that would be awesome. So I am excited. I'm more than in previous years. I'm really looking forward to this phone.
Oh, I'm so excited about this. I really am. Like, I mean, we've been saying this to each other for weeks, but I am more excited about this iPhone than I remember being excited for an iPhone in a very, very, very long time. Because there is just, it doesn't matter how much we know or think we know about this device. It's going to be so awesome to watch this thing be unveiled, because it's just going to be so special looking, and it's going to be so weird and wonderful in a way that the iPhone hasn't been probably since the Plus was released. I think like that was maybe the last time that I was this excited, because that then was the phone for me, and this now is the phone for me. Like, the Plus was the phone that I wanted when it didn't exist, and this is the phone that I want because it doesn't exist, right? Like, I've wanted for a while to get rid of all of the big bezels and the borders that go around a phone, because I'm excited about this design trend. But kind of going back to the event a little bit, something that I'm really intrigued to see how Apple is going to manage is the other iPhones. Like, how are they going to position this? I'm really intrigued to see just like the dance that they do, and like the way that they tell the story of why you should buy the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, but why you should also buy the iPhone Pro. I'm really interested to see how that's going to work out.
I think that the naming has a lot to do with that. I agree that I think we're going to see them skip the S nomenclature this year. The rumor is that these phones are going to look very similar, but they're going to have wireless charging, which means you got to have a glass back. So the design will be different to a degree. And so I think as the event goes on, they're announcing these phones as if they're the only phones they're announcing. And then there's one more thing. Hey, there's this special phone sitting above that. And there will be people who, like, no doubt, this 8 and 8 Plus, if that's what they're called, they will not see the numbers that the top of the line phone normally would see. I think Apple's hoping that, we're going to make that difference up with the more expensive phone, so the average selling price goes up, everyone's happy. But yeah, that's the question here, and I think they're going to need to be, they're going to need to have that wireless charging feature. The case is going to need to be a little bit different to accommodate that, and hopefully that's enough. Like if it looked just like the 7, which looked just like the 6S, which looked just like the 6, that's going to be a real bummer. And yes, this phone is going to look old compared to the new one, but the new one's going to, the Edition or the Pro or whatever, but that Pro phone is going to be so much more expensive and so different than, I think maybe Apple's hoping to split the difference. Like, hey, people who, upgrade every 2 years or 3 years, this is a great phone for you, and it's going to be faster, and it's going to have this better camera, and it's going to have wireless charging, and that great. But then the enthusiast phone will be there for those of us who are willing to spend the money. And I think they're hoping they can just split that divide. And, maybe it's not as big of a deal as we think it is, because there's a huge number of consumers who just upgrade every 2 or 3 years to whatever's newest. And that phone will be there waiting for them. And they'll, it'll be a big upgrade from their 6 or 6S or whatever.
So we're a week away. We've got a really big event coming up next week, which I'm really excited about. I'm interested to see how the new venue looks, and how they present that as well.
Me too. I'm super excited about that. I think that we will see some time in the keynote dedicated to Apple Park and to the theater. That they used to do retail updates, and they've basically gotten rid of those. But I think there will be some time of like, welcome to our new home. Some gratuitous drone footage of the campus, and maybe even something about the theater itself. I think we talked about when they named it. The name is perfect. I'm excited to see the space because I'm sort of like a AV nerd, and I just kind of want to see what the space looks like. And I think that they will show it off. I think this is the first time they're on their own campus, first time that they control everything. They're not renting out the Flint Center and building a giant building next door to it. So I think they'll spend some time welcoming the press and the world to their new home. I think that'll be fun to see.
Question for you, Stephen. Natural light.
Yes.
Do you think they'll use natural light?
In the theater? Or the theater subterranean? So no.
But doesn't it have like all that glass roof? Like I'm just like trying to understand if there's a way they could do that.
So the way the theater works, it's the big lobby upstairs, which is maybe where the hands-on will be. I don't know. That is that circle room with glass all the way around. It's got a carbon fiber roof. The theater, though, you go downstairs. It's subterranean. So I don't think there's going to be any natural light in the theater. Okay. I think it'll be, you step into this auditorium and they control everything, which is just like how town hall is. Town hall is not underground, but like any theater, there's no very few theaters use natural light because they want to control everything. So you're going to walk downstairs into this giant auditorium. But yeah, it'll be fun. I agree with you. It'll be fun to see that and see what that space is like. I'm very, very curious to hear Upgrade that week, to hear Jason's, because Jason has been to all these venues, and I'm very curious to know how the Steve Jobs Theater holds up. It'll blow away the old town hall, but what is it like compared to all these other places that they've used over the years?
Yeah, I'm concerned over what could be an 11 billion hour upgrade, because
it's going to be very long.
I really want to know just about the venue. Like I'm really intrigued to like, what is the waiting area like? What are the seats like? Like, I'm very intrigued just to find out what the place is like before we even start talking about the new products.
Does the Wi-Fi work? Is there power in the seats? Like, I would hope, they were talking about this on the Vergecast this week, that a lot of these venues, because they're not really made for this sort of thing, like journalists struggle, and like the Wi-Fi is really bad, or there's very limited power. It's like you're there for 3 hours and you're taking pictures and streaming and all this stuff. Your MacBook Pro dies. Apple has in control of all of that now. So like that should all be great. And I'm very curious to see if they pulled that off. I mean, I hope they have.
This building has been built for this. This is what it's for. Like, it should be purpose made for journalists. So apparently there's some new seat reservation system as well, which they never had before. Like, yeah, I'm really keen just to find out what the venue's like. But talking about Upgrade, before we wrap up, me and Jason will be doing our draft this week. If you've never heard the Upgrade keynote drafts, they're some of the best episodes of Upgrade. We have a lot of fun putting those together. So that's going to be, I think we're doing that tomorrow. Because of my travel, we were a little bit delayed, but we're going to be ending the Upgrade Summer of Fun with the keynote draft, I think. So that's going to be happening on Upgrade tomorrow, so you can check that out. Federico, what are you planning? What kind of event coverage are you expecting to be taken care of at Mac Stories?
So the full team should be on hand to cover all the news and all the overviews that we need to do. I just plan to enjoy, like in the over the past 2 years, I'm fortunate enough to be able to watch the show, maybe even with Sylvia, enjoy watching the show, talking with friends on Twitter, assigning stories to other team members. Then as soon as the event is over, upgrade all of my devices to the GM seed of iOS 11 and start taking screenshots, because I'm very happy to communicate, Mike, that by tomorrow night, my review should be done.
Wow.
Completely edited. Each chapter has been edited 6 to 7 times, read aloud, and fully prepared for screenshots and videos. That's all that's left. So yeah,
I can see why you maybe stay away from the event coverage, because like you've got to get those screenshots done, right? That's like a big job, because then it's like, well, we can assume when iOS will come out, but nobody knows. They could be like, iOS is coming out tomorrow. Like, we don't actually, we can look at history, but nobody really knows. So
High Sierra is even worse in that regard. I'm gonna have my review ready. I could publish it on the 12th, because they could just be like, it's out today. They've done that in the past, just no warning. So yeah, it's a stressful time if you're a reviewer, no doubt.
Turns out, yep, very stressful indeed. You can find our show notes online over at relay.fm/connected/158. You can find Federico's work over at macstories.net, and he is at Viticci on Twitter, VITICCI. You can find Stephen's work at 512pixels.net, and he is online. He is on Twitter online. He's on the internet at ISMH. I am at iMike, IMYKE, and I will say to you, dear listeners, we'll be back next week on Wednesday the 13th, so we can get some distance from the event, so we can talk about everything in fine and thorough detail. But until then, say goodbye, guys.
Arrivederci.
Adios.